Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, June 30th, 2025, and today we're going to talk about if school teaches us what we will actually use, different types of packaging for produce, and what we're up to headed into July here on the farm. So let's do it. All right, well, happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all had a fun and fulfilling weekend or busy and profitable weekends or whatever your weekends might have brought. Mine definitely lean more towards the busy side. I wouldn't say profitable, but definitely busy. I took down a chunk of our porch that had rotted, which was fun and a ton of work. We went to see a free version of Hamlet in Louisville on Saturday with the kids, which freely accessible Shakespeare is pretty awesome. And then I took the kiddos to a Lou City soccer game on Sunday night to celebrate officially 1 year sober. Okay, I probably would have gone anyway, but still. Now, I've talked about my sort of, challenges with alcohol and how much it started to affect my brain and my health, and for sure, it's not going to be the same for everyone, but this has been, without a doubt, the best year I've had health-wise, like physical and mental, in, I don't know, quite a while, maybe ever. I'm less shaky and anxious and foggy, and weirdly, I actually wake up almost every morning feeling good, which is wild. So yeah, cheers to that, I guess. Though, of course, cheers doesn't feel like the right word, but you get the idea. Anyway, this week, I'm also excited that at the end of some of our segments, we're going to hear from some of our listeners, that would be you, who submitted videos last week. It was super fun to see these videos and hear your all's voices for once, and we look forward to sharing some of those throughout the week. I also appreciate how strictly people adhered to the 20-second rule. And you will hear how some of them just cut themselves off mid-sentence, which wasn't entirely necessary, but is kind of amusing. Don't send any more for now, but if you like this little thing we're going to do, we'll do more of it in the future, maybe with different questions, different ideas. Maybe we'll take some questions that way. For me, I've always kind of dreamed of making this show more interactive in that way, but because it is already a massive job just to get you like 20 minutes of content every day, we're taking baby steps to get there. But a little call-in segment would be rad one day. So anyway, yeah. Baby steps. All right, in celebration of hearing from you all about how your seasons are going in those clips, today I thought I would take this first segment to catch you all up a bit on what we have going on around the farm right now and a little about what I've been up to in this heat. First, you should always be managing your soil in a way that requires little to no cultivation, but like I said last week, I goofed in a couple spots, trying some new things, which is pretty typical of me, always trying something new, often goofing. Anyway, there is some cultivation to be done in those spots, and honestly, the heat is the time to do cultivation because one, the soil is in the right condition for it by not being too wet, and two, stuff that you cultivate, that would be like hoe it, actually dies because, well, it's hot and sunny. I also, in doing some of the cultivation this week, remember just how much I actually love being in the heat. This is, there's a limit, of course, to how long and how hard you can work in like, near 100-degree weather. And it slows me down tremendously, but I really love the summer. I love being outside, sweating, working, sunshine, all of it. I have struggled these last 2 years with winter for some reason. It's just like changed in my brain. It's too dark for too long, and although I have some affection for the cold, specifically, I love me some good hoodie weather, and I actually grew up in Colorado where I would go snowboarding, loved all that, but the daylight here is gone so quickly that I find myself feeling, trapped somewhat indoors, especially with the ice storms we had in January. We almost literally couldn't get out of the house. Kentucky's not like other states where, there's a whole lot to do in the winter. It's not like you can go sledding that much or, go skiing or go snowboarding or whatever. It's just wet and cold and muddy, which growing up provided quite a difficult blow to my ice hockey career. Also, the fact that I wasn't very strong or good skater or very good at hockey. Anyway, I don't love that, the winter, so I'm trying to cherish this heat a little bit, even if it too becomes hard working outdoors after a while. I've also been working on some mid-season cucurbits like squash, zucchini, and cucumbers, but also another round of watermelons and winter squash, getting those into the ground, including some cover-cropped ground that I had terminated back like a few weeks ago. Anyway, that was Ryan Vetch that I planted some winter squash into, so I'm excited about that. Squash are certainly some of my least profitable crops, but also some of my favorites to grow. I just love the way they look. I like eating squash. I like looking at it. It's awesome crop. And that's especially true of watermelon. The first round of watermelons are flowering, so the second round I just started. That should provide a nice little succession of that crop and really just a lot of juice for the wintertime. Watermelon. It's like my taste of heat in the cold. Garlic is out, and so are some potatoes and onions, and with more of that to follow soon. The potato trial I started this spring with the slips is not going to yield very helpful results, unfortunately, because of just the sheer number of variables involved and the intense rainfall we had that drowned a bunch of plants, and some of the slips just failed. I don't know if it was because of the rain or what, but last year all of our slips succeeded. This year, almost none of our potatoes slips, not our sweet potato, our regular potato slips, succeeded. About half of them maybe. So that's not great. Doing trials is just really tough here in our climate unless you're doing said trials completely in tunnels, in which case you can control the weather a little bit. And I may actually try that with the potato trials next year. But anyway, I got a late round of field tomatoes in last week as well, which are mostly just slicers and heirlooms and are going to receive the absolute minimal amount of attention from me for being field tomatoes. Simple Florida weave, trellising, and no pruning, just to make sure I get a decent yield, but don't lose a lot of money to grow them. A lot of tomatoes in the field here just blight out, so you don't want to spend a ton of energy on them. Though we do have success with those later tomatoes a little bit more than our other ones because there's less rain in July, in theory. We'll see. This hasn't been the year for less rain. But anyway, planting stuff has been tough through the heat in general, though there's very little, save for like maybe okra, that is fine to go out in 100-degree heat indexes. I got some lettuce into our tunnel itself under shade, which I have been irrigating like wild to keep alive and happy. Won't regret that in a month when we're one of the only farms with lettuce, but it's a tough challenge to get it started and then get it planted when the weather is what it is. And plans to stay that way by the looks of it. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to July. Like I said, I just love this heat. The garden is in a decent place as well, much smaller and tamer than last year's, but decent. And this old farmer feels pretty good, just enjoying the summer while I can. But this winter, don't be surprised when I frequently daydream about my winter farm in the tropics, maybe when the kids are out of school. Anyway, let's hear some from you all about how your season is going, and then take a quick break, and then return to talk packaging. BRB.
Hey, it's Michelle coming to you from Songhaven Farm out in southwest Colorado in the Great Sage Plains. It's been a typical chaotic year, cool, then hot, now cool again. We're waiting on the monsoons, and Agrobond, shade cloth, and wind protection is the way we roll. Thanks for what you're doing, Jesse. Keep up the good work.
My name is Carlan. I'm here in Provo, Utah, and this is my backyard no-till garden. Corn, melon, nasturtium, pumpkins, flowers, cucumbers, tomatoes, cabbage, San Marzano, grafted Cherokee carbon. Look at that stem growth.
Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. If you're listening to this, you probably found 5 rare minutes to breathe, but what got pushed back further down the to-do list to make that happen? If it's your CSA newsletter, you're not alone. Farmhand's new newsletter builder was made for busy farmers. It automates weekly emails, drives add-on sales, and makes it easy to keep your customers in the loop without spending hours behind a screen. It launches this summer, but our listeners can request early access now. Visit farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast or the stories at the end, because I know some of you are just hanging in for those, but if you are getting even a small amount of value from this show, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions now. Today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Jesse. Love that I have so many supporters named Jesse on that Patreon page. Jesse asks, quote, "What packaging do I need for a beginner market garden? It will be my first summer at my local farmer's market, and I'm beginning to need supplies to package my harvest. Where do you go to shop for things like this?" End quote. All right, Jesse, great question. So I already did an episode talking about biodegradable/compostable options that I will link in the show notes. For this, I will talk more broadly about what works for certain kinds of crops, and then you can decide on the actual materials you use. And I'll also talk a little bit about where we get ours, which, to be honest, is mostly just Webstaurant. So that kind of answers that question. But for those loose greens, most growers use either bags with twist ties or tapes, for which there's like a little machine that puts the tape on the top. I don't love the tapes because the bags are hard to open when you put the tape on it and require ripping, thus eliminating any chance of the customer being able to reuse them. Anyway, loose leaf lettuces, baby greens, that sort of stuff usually goes in bags or clamshells. Clamshells take up more room in markets, in like a market setting. Like if you're taking a bunch of clamshells to market, it's kind of hard to fit that many. You can fit a lot more bags into a cooler than you can, say, clamshells. And that goes for both in the cooler and on the table and in the truck or whatever. But they do look nice, the clamshells, and are better for retail situations. For bags, it's usually like 1-gallon bags that we use. For clamshells, it depends on how many ounces you are selling per unit. Places like Webstaurant have all those details for how much fits in each container, generally speaking, but you can also head to the grocery and see what their produce packages contain to get an idea as well of how much, say, 10 ounces of spinach is and what the package looks like. In terms of greens on stems like kale and chard, most growers either band those together with rubber bands, we use size 33 I believe, or use bags. 1 gallon bags can be a little tight for large bunches if you're trying to get both the greens and the long stems in there. Those same rubber bands can work for carrots, beets, radishes, etc. Cherry tomatoes are a small ventilated 1 pint clamshell for us that hold about about a pound. Pint is a pound the world round, right? Then for bulk, we use 3-pound cherry clams that are also ventilated. We have 1 ventilated bag that we use for squash, zucchini, and cucumbers. Ventilated just meaning that they have tiny holes in them to allow for a little airflow, in case that wasn't clear. Deli containers can come in handy as well for things like microgreens, popcorn, edible flowers, all sorts of stuff. Plus, they are more reusable and recyclable than other plastic containers. Oftentimes, we'll use them to store our winter stocks from our summer veggies. Also, there are the berry containers that can range in size and materials, woods and fibers. We use those a lot at the farmer's market for things like cherry tomatoes and half-pint berry containers, and potatoes and squash and all sorts of stuff. Potatoes can be tough to package though, as too much sunlight will obviously cause some greening, but not enough sunlight, and customers will literally not see them, meaning you have to display them somehow, but packaging them how they actually want to be packaged makes them invisible on the table. Potatoes are kind of difficult in that way. In the past, we've used little cotton bags, these little white cotton bags, and sold them in bulk that way, which was very effective, but the bags got a little too expensive to justify the cost. I think it ended up being like 50 cents or something a piece, and it's just like, I don't know, when you add that up, it's a lot. Burlap could work too, and we definitely found that people enjoyed the pre-bagged option. Just figuring out how to make it cost effective is tough. A lot of how you package your produce will depend on your marketing. At a farmer's market, for instance, there is less incentive to make the packaging look quite as nice as at like a retail store or even for chefs. Chefs really like stuff looking clean and fresh. I always say like chefs want it to look like they envision it going out on the table. Like you have to think like a chef in that way. They want their product to really awe the customers, so it helps when your product awes them. But in terms of the farmer's market, not that it can look sloppy, absolutely not. It should still look great and clean and all those things, but it just doesn't have to be quite as much of a standalone product like it does on a shelf. For instance, when we were doing farmer's markets, we did not label very much because it wasn't necessary. The label was on the table to alert the customer to what they were looking at, and it was not necessarily on every individual bag. Did the label make things look nice when we did it? For sure, but they sold without the label, so we realized that we didn't need to waste the paper and the extra labor. If they're selling without the label, you probably don't need it. You may find your market is more competitive, and then you can add those little tweaks like a sticker or like clamshells or some special packaging to make your product stand out. I've mentioned before that we use the Brother QL 800 series printer and have for many years now, and it's been great. I'll link that in the show notes. Anyway, let us know what I missed, commenters, and we'll discuss it more on, well, we won't do Feedback Friday because it's 4th of July. We're taking Friday off. We'll discuss it on Monday. Let's do Feedback Monday next week. That sounds like fun. Otherwise, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll go back to school. Sort of. Be right back.
Hey, Jesse. I'm Rachel. I live in Georgia, and I listen to you every day while I'm driving to work. This is my little bitty garden. In my heart, I'm a market gardener, but it's not working out. This corn, I didn't listen to you, and I put wood chips under it, and the growth is stunted.
Today's episode is brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTIL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership. All right, back to the show. All right, so what kids should actually be learning in school versus what they actually learn is an age-old debate. And although I think the debate is shifting quite a lot given the new technology such as generative AI rendering whole swaths of science, engineering, technology, and math obsolete in coming years, I also think there are some age-old deficiencies within the school system that both people of my generation and people of the current generation, and to some extent people of the last generation before me, missed out on, which especially now feels true for me being 20 some odd years removed from high school. First, something I mentioned on Friday and feel like was a huge missed opportunity to learn in school was learning how to sew, mend, patch, create things with fabric, any of that stuff. I had a couple commenters on that video mention that they actually did learn to sew in school. I actually think we had a class or a day of sewing, but there is a canyon between learning what something is and learning how to actually do it in many different contexts. To me, while I was learning matrices, for instance, in math, I should have been learning how to fix a pocket on a jacket or a rip on my jeans or hem a pair of pants or something. As someone who is hard on their clothes, as a farmer, this is a skill that I would have used regularly throughout my life and also probably would have saved a lot of things from going to the landfill. I also never got anywhere near a garden in school, which feels like such a failure. I could not identify which plants grew which veggies or fruits until I was in my 20s. The garden, a place rich with biology and chemistry and math and history, is perhaps the greatest of neglected classrooms. They exist at some schools, certainly, and maybe increasingly so, and I'd love to hear about some of the school projects that are going on in and around your communities, but gardens should be a focal point, not an elective. Same with sewing, same with any of these other things I'm about to talk about, including like carpentry. Everyone should have a basic understanding of how to build a basic wall and a roof, plus set a door when they graduate high school. Everyone. Pretty much all of the day-to-day math you will ever need or need to know can pretty much be learned in carpentry. Obviously, there's specializations, there's physics, all those things. You can always do all that later. There's no harm in learning all that stuff later or as electives, but like the basics should be learned in high school. Changing a tire as well. Maybe even doing a full tune-up and oil change on your car. It may not be in everyone's goals to be a mechanic, but those are basic skills that will serve you for your entire life and or could save you time and money as you enter the job market, upended significantly by automation and AI technologies, which we have no plan for as a world. But anyway, that's fun. Cooking could have been a daily task at school, and it should have been. Home ec used to be a staple, which itself was inadequate, but even that has seemingly fallen somewhat out of favor. However, we need to be able to not only grow food, but prepare it, all of us, every single day. Another one, and this may sound odd, but the number one thing I think I wish everyone would learn in high school is journalism. We should all be able to research and prove what we believe and be able to argue it with citations. Skepticism is at an all-time high right now, but my gosh, are we bad at skepticism as a culture. There is no methodology behind our skepticism, no curiosity, no due diligence and objective scrutiny. When realities don't fit our worldview, we just make up new realities, something that would not be the case if we were given the proper tools and techniques to investigate what we are told as well as what we believe. Doing your own research is useless if you don't know how to do research. Anyway, when I look at that small list, I see something important. Skills. Skills like cooking, building, sewing, scrutinizing, etc. have a permanent value and can't be taken away from us by a shift in the labor market. Anyway, what say you? What do you wish you'd learned in school? What do you wish your kids would learn? What are you seeing? What are some cool school programs that are going on that deserve some credit? Otherwise, I'm going to call it a Monday. Yeah. I think it is Monday. It's probably appropriate and polite to call it Monday. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is now officially a 501c3 nonprofit, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Also, shouts to Joe Wozniak for their donation this week. You rock. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and the team at No-Till Growers for their support. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. It seems too late. Love is strong. Pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or the Seed Farmer at no-tillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of June, you only have like a few more hours, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to PJat, it's like Pat with a J in the middle of it, and Molly McBeath. It's got a little bit of that Shakespeare vibe to it. Just a little bit. Updated, modernized. Okay, so this story is about a flower farm in, let's say, I don't know, Tennessee. And on the surface, this flower farm does what most flower farms do. It grows flowers for weddings and farmers markets, the usual stuff. But what is not obvious is the host of flowers that this farm produces for conjuring magic. It's literally not obvious. You would think that the flowers that the local wizards and witches would be flashy and sparkly or colorful, but that's not really how magic works. The line between magic and the mastery of the natural world is actually pretty thin. It takes a little more than knowing how to use the flower or herb or whatever it may be to turn it into something extraordinary. But anyway, one day, this flower farmer goes out to the fields to find that one specific flower they grow was completely burned to the ground. No flowers, no other plants, just one bed of one flower, ashes. Why or by whom? That is this week's story, provided we get some Patreon signups. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you, let's do tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow.